What is going on, Locks Mob, and welcome back to the Week 7 edition of Addy's Action. Before I get into it, I just want to say thank you guys again for all the love you've been showing on Week 6 of Addy's Action, Week 5, all of them, man. The love has been crazy. The comments have been dope. I love the interaction that I'm having with y'all. I tried to respond to every comment I got. I think I did it. Every comment prior to lock that I got on the last Addy's Action. I'm gonna do the same again. So if y'all have anything to say, please do say it. But yeah, I can't stress that enough. I appreciate the feedback. It really does mean a lot on all our videos. So definitely appreciate that. I'm not going to take you out to the website, but you know where I'm from. I'm from locksdfs.com. That's where we provide our optimized lineups for any sport that you want, NHL, NBA, NFL. We got that covered. So hit us up if you're looking to win some money in DFS. We can definitely help you out. But for right now, you already know what Addy's Action is. I talk about my GPP plays, some of the under-the-radar plays that I like of the week, and general strategy. I just like to talk. These videos usually hover around 25, 30 minutes. I'm in a talkative mood, so we might push that, but we'll see. So last week, I started Addy's Action by doing a recap of my cash game lineup. As you guys know, I'm a one lineup kind of guy. Same lineup in cash, same lineup as tournaments. So that kind of has me on some sort of riskier plays, just because I'm trying to do both. But I try and keep it cash game safe as well. This was the lineup I ran in week 6. As you can see, I got busts in Jared Goff, John Brown, and that's really it. Just Jared Goff and John Brown. Everyone else kind of did their thing. Still good enough to cash. We cashed in cash games pretty easy. Put up 161.14. It was really just the massive weeks of Gurley that helped. Latavius was dope. That was kind of that late breaking news. I talked about Dalvin Cook, why I really like that spot versus Arizona for the running back. Little did I know Dalvin Cook ended up getting ruled out, which kind of made Latavius Murray kind of a lock in my eyes with the positive game script that he was going to see. So locked him in at good ownership. It tends to be like that, man. When chalk breaks on Sunday, some people are so set in their lineups that they're not willing to just like switch the process up, because you're already set. You've done your whole week's worth of research, and you don't really want to switch it up. But I felt like I had to for Latavius, and it worked out. Zeke was dope. These guys came through. The Vernon Davis call was random. A lot of people like Christian Taylor, they were giving me shit about it before. But I mean, 0.3% owned. Like he's a good player. It was sort of that late news as well. All those wide receivers out for Washington. I'm going to talk about a guy in this similar spot in this week's Addy's Action as to why I targeted this spot. But it was sort of just leverage. I thought Jordan Reed was a great play. So if I thought Jordan Reed was a great play, kind of Vernon Davis in the same mold. I even thought they would split out Jordan Reed at wide receiver a little bit more. And Vernon Davis might get a lot of those tight end snaps. And so he was dope. Cortland Sutton, fanboy. Got to lock him in every week. But yeah, good week. But with that being said, we're forward thinking. So we're going to move forward to this week. I'm really excited about this week because I got some dope plays for you, but it's also just a cool week, man. It's a really, really cool week in the NFL. There's a lot of spots you can go after. There's a lot of value opening up that I think a lot of people are going to chase after. Some good, some bad. We'll kind of get into that as this video goes on. But yeah, just starting at quarterback, if you look, man, I think a lot of people, part of my job as far as a DFS player and doing this video is identifying chalk. I think it's not too hard this week. I think we're going to see a lot of Joe Flacco chalk at 5,400 in a great matchup versus New Orleans, and rightfully so. Him and a lot of his pass catches are in play. I think we're going to see some Jared Goff ownership, and rightfully so. Todd Gurley is a smash play. He should be great as a receiver in this game. I mean, San Francisco funnels targets to the running back spot, so that should boost his floor and his ceiling. And that could help Jared Goff as well with those receiving yards coming from his running back. I think the target distribution is a little more narrow, so it's easier to stack with Cooper Kupp out. So Jared Goff is going to generate a lot of ownership as well. Baker Mayfield may get some. But for the sake of this video, the guy I'm going to talk about, he's coming in really, really untalked about. No one's talking about him, despite him having week-winning upside the past 2 weeks, and that is going to be Mitch Trubisky. Now, Mitch Trubisky, I mean, like I talked about, he's a guy who had week winning upside the past 2 weeks. I mean, he put up 46.46 versus Tampa Bay in a great matchup. And then last week versus Miami, he put up another week winning score with 31.34. This is a guy who is surrounded by talented weapons. I mean, it's not talked about enough. Between Jordan Howard and the run game, who they're kind of siphoning out, but Tariq Cohen in there, Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, Trey Burton, and a good coach. This is a guy who's got good opportunity to succeed. New England, as far as the defense, is not generating any pressure, and the number one thing we need for a quarterback to succeed is a clean pocket. I think this is what Mitch Trubisky will get. Vegas, surprisingly, is actually kind of going the other way on this game. 62% of bets on the over, yet it's dropped from 50 to 48.5. But it doesn't really deter me on still believing that this could be a sneaky shootout, partially because of the guy on the other end. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. But Khalil Mack, a little banged up for the Bears on defense, kind of ups the chance of this being a shootout with Tom Brady getting a clean pocket and getting to sort of pick apart a Bears defense that, despite being good, kind of showed their weakness versus, or showed some weaknesses, I should say, versus Miami last week and Brock Osweiler. And if they haven't fixed whatever that weakness was, I trust Bill Belichick to exploit it. So I definitely think this could be a shootout. And I really want Mitch Trubisky here. I mean, he's got a great matchup. A lot of his strengths with Tariq Cohen and those perimeter wide receivers are New England's weaknesses. So he will sort of be the guy that I don't think a lot of people are going to look to in this range just because of all the names around here. I mean, Flacco, Watson, and Drew Brees, which for the record, Drew Brees at 5,700 is wild. It just regardless of matchup. But I do think he's sort of the forgotten guy here, despite him showing a ceiling that we really didn't know that Mitch Trubisky had coming into this year. So love Mitch Trubisky as my Week 7 Addy's Action quarterback. Moving on to running back, like we talked about, I think is going to be Todd Gurley chalk week, as we talked about. I said on the pod that we just finished recording, I think Todd Gurley is going to hit 90% owned in double ups on DraftKings. We saw Julio Jones push 90% last week, which is really rare for a position player on DraftKings and NFL, but I think Todd Gurley is going to push 90%. Probably the closest we're going to get to 100% owned as a guess, just because there's no one really else to pay for. I mean, like, people can get Adam Thielen if they want. You could get them both if you wanted because there's enough value, but I think it's really the barrier to getting Todd Gurley is very, very slim. So I think everyone's going to have him. So he's kind of the chalk for the running back spot. My running back was actually going to be Tariq Cohen for this video, but I think he's going to garner some ownership. And I talked a lot about him on the podcast, so that'll be on YouTube as well. It'll be on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, all that stuff. So check that podcast out if you want to hear my Tariq Cohen takes, because I like him. And then I also think another really chalk running back is going to be Nick Chubb. Breaking news today was that Carlos Hyde was traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars, which kind of opens up the role for Nick Chubb to take over that Carlos Hyde role. And I think that's important to note that he's taking over the Carlos Hyde role. This is a guy who only got one target this entire season, and he did nothing with it. He's not gotten many carries, but he is a guy who's explosive. He's got good upside, but running back upside, I mean, if he's going to be chalk, I said it on the pod, I'm comfortable fading a guy who doesn't have any pass game upside because that's really how a running back explodes. This is rare. This 3, 105, and 2 is rare. That if he's not breaking the tackle, he could have a great game. I mean, Nick Chubb could have, 15 carries for 80 yards, which is an awesome game, but it's still only 8 points if he's not getting a touchdown or any receiving yards. So I'm not too interested in the Nick Chubb chalk. I think he's a good play, and there's a good chance he ends up in my lineup just because I want to block that spot if I think he's going to be that highly owned. But I think this is a route to target this Cleveland passing game versus Tampa Bay. We know how just pitiful Tampa is versus every position, including running back. I mean, if I pull up right here, we go to Football Outsiders. I mean, Tampa Bay versus the running back, they're 30th in the league. They give up 64.5 yards per game. That is third last in the league as well. These numbers are off Football Outsiders, assuming, again, all of you are watching the video so you can see what I'm pointing to. But, I mean, they get shelled versus pass-catching running backs, and that's not Nick Chubb's role. And so that kind of brings me to my GPP play. Took me a long time to get there, but that's Duke Johnson. So he's at 4K. Projected ownership right now is fairly low. I think it's going to come in higher, especially with the Carlos Hyde news, but I still think a lot of people are going to play Chubb. And if we see that number creep up and get higher and higher, I mean, this is a game, the over-under is rising in at 49-51. The Bears are trailing. I mean, not the Bears, my apologies. The Browns are road dogs. You know, that's not an ideal spot to take a running back as a 3.5-point road dog. It's fine. It's not an untakeable spot, but you typically want that running back to have pass game upside, which Nick Chubb does not have, but Duke Johnson does. We saw Tariq Cohen rip apart this Tampa defense in sort of a similar role on wheel routes and sort of routes out of the backfield. I think that's a role that it would be really, really smart of the Browns to use Duke Johnson in a similar role. And so I really, really like the value you're getting here at 4K and the fact that he's a sharp fade off of Nick Chubb and what's going to project to be a fairly chalky passing game if you don't want to go there, if you just want to go like Duke Johnson on this. And if he eats, man, and for whatever reason these chalk David Njoku's and Jarvis Landry's don't, this could be a great way to get exposure to this passing game for super, super cheap. But yeah, that's sort of all with the running back. It's kind of an interesting week with like Zeke. Zeke's looking kind of chalky despite it not being a great spot for him, as well as not a good spot for McCaffrey or Kamara. So it's kind of looking like Gurley and pay down. So if people are, and like I talked about on the pod, that could up the ownership of Chubb as well because it's looking like a Gurley and pay down week. So if you just want to go straight pivot off of Chubb, I love Duke Johnson at 4K. Moving on though, let's get to wide receiver. I kind of want to stay in this Chicago game, and I'm gonna give you guys two wide receivers, and I'm gonna stay in the Chicago game for both of them. Starting on the Chicago side, I want to talk about Taylor Gabriel. Taylor Gabriel's a guy who is playing the Tyreek Hill role for, as we know, Matt Nagy came over from Kansas City to Chicago. He brought his offense over, and he implemented Gabriel in the Tyreek Hill role. It's a really high upside role. The key thing here is this dude is a speedster. He's got blazing quick speed, and this New England defense is slow-footed. We saw Tyreek Hill burn them. A spot to target just in general, and keep it in mind for DFS weeks going forward, is speed versus New England. It's kind of their weakness, which is why I like Tariq Cohen, and again, why I like Taylor Gabriel. I mean, he's super efficient with his targets. He ranks, let me make sure I get this right. He ranks second in air yards on the Bears. He ranks first in receiving yards, second in targets, second in weighted opportunity rating behind Allen Robinson, who's also a great play, but I think he'll see Stephon Gilmore's coverage, which will leave Taylor Gabriel sort of in this, sort of just picking on these scrap cornerbacks. And as we know, Bill Belichick likes to scheme to take away sort of the best option on opposing offenses. And regardless of what he views as the best option, it's not going to be Taylor Gabriel. Whether he tries to take away Allen Robinson or Trey Burton or Jordan Howard or Tariq Cohen, I don't think Bill Belichick's really focusing on Taylor Gabriel. So I love this spot for him. And I could definitely see him being a guy that cracks, like, despite him sort of looking like a GPP play. He's got a fairly modest ADOT, around 10.4, which is good for ceiling and floor. Like, that's a solid ADOT. The other guy that we're going to talk about has a similar ADOT. Which, by the way, is average depth of target. I know I talk about stats like pretty quickly. I should do a better job of explaining them. But I really do like Taylor Gabriel in this spot. But staying in this game, just kind of flipping over to the other side. This is nothing really more than just sort of a price play. Like, this dude right here with the Q by his name, sitting at 5,600. This dude right here, Josh Gordon, he may be one of the more talented wide receivers in the NFL, playing with arguably the best quarterback of all time, playing for arguably the best coach of all time, a guy who's known for maximizing talent. Josh Gordon had 9 targets last game versus Kansas City. He led the Patriots in air yards in that game. Despite them having a lot of mouths to feed, it looks like Josh Gordon is going to be one of those mouths that get fed, and in big plays as well. I mean, this dude had a solid ADOT. It was right around 10. He ran a bunch of diverse routes. I should mention he was on the field for like 85% of the snaps. He ran, I think, like the most routes on the Patriots. Might have been the second most, but he was out there for them. He clearly has earned their trust. Belichick trusts him. Tom Brady trusts him. He made a couple really incredible catches. He almost made a really dope touchdown catch that I'm sure a lot of y'all saw, but he ended up being interfered with by some Chiefs cornerback. But yeah, dope play. I mean, he's 5.6K. You're getting Tom Brady's deep threat, sort of his upside wide receiver at 5.6K. We saw this Bears defense give it up a little bit to Miami. They've shown sort of a propensity to get ripped apart a little bit. Not ripped apart, but they've shown the propensity to give it up to slot wide receivers, which kind of boost Julian Edelman, but also outside wide receivers as well have put up a few good games against them. This is a game, like I talked about, Khalil Mack is questionable for the game. He probably is going to play, but he looked a little gimpy versus Miami, and I don't think he's going to be 100%. And like we talked about, what you need to succeed as a quarterback is a clean pocket. If you give Tom Brady a clean pocket, he will pick apart any defense. Point blank, period. There is no defense that can stop a clean pocket with an elite quarterback with a clean pocket. I think that'll give him a lot of time for Josh Gordon to run his diverse route tree and Tom Brady to hit him for a couple. So I love this game as a sneaky shootout, and I think you can just run back your Trubisky-Gabriel stack with Josh Gordon. With that being said, there's a few other plays here. I mean, just if I want to talk about the wide receiver chalk, I think a lot of it is going to go to one of these, like, I think people are going to be split between these two Rams wide receivers, Cooks and Woods. Rightfully so. They're both awesome plays. Down here in the sort of cheap range, I think some people may go towards Josh Reynolds. I'm personally not too interested in Josh Reynolds. I think he's going to be sacrificed to Richard Sherman on the left side of the field, and Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods and Todd Gurley are just going to do the eating because that's enough mouths to feed already. So I'm not really on Josh Reynolds. I think a sneaky pivot off of him is Damian Ratley right here. No one's talking about Damian Ratley, and rightfully so. I mean, he's kind of like a not known kind of guy, but I mean, he got 8 targets last week. He is sort of their number 2 wide receiver because Antonio Callaway sucks, man. This dude sucks so bad. His ADOT is so high, so that doesn't help his already repetitive drop problems. I mean, this dude cannot catch the ball. Talking about Antonio Callaway. Damian Ratley, on the other hand, is good, man. 6 receptions, 8 targets in blowout time, in garbage time versus the Chargers. And I think we could see something similar like that again. I think we could see Tampa Bay jump out to a lead. Damian Ratley could play a lot of snaps. Look at this. He's the same price as Nick Chubb. If you believe in the passing game, play Damian Ratley. If you believe in the running game, play Nick Chubb. But I think for where my money's going to go, I think I'd rather just play Damian Ratley here. And I do like him more than Josh Reynolds. I think Jermaine Kearse is going to be super chalky, rightfully so. I love Jermaine Kearse, and I love these Baltimore wide receivers as well in Crabtree and Brown. Brown obviously more suited for GPPs and Crabtree for cash games. But just to give you guys my final take on wide receiver, my Addy's action plays are Taylor Gabriel and Josh Gordon, just back and forth in that Chicago game. Moving on though to tight end, I think tight end is pretty easy to detect the chalk here. It's going to be David Njoku, the Chief, rightfully so. I mean, he's dope. Awesome play. Tampa Bay gives up the most yards per game to tight ends by like 10. It's damn near 100 yards per game to tight ends. So Njoku, chalk, awesome play. I'm not going to tell you not to play him, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to talk about someone else, and that's Zach Ertz. Y'all saw I had Vernon Davis in my lineup last week. This tight end spot versus Carolina is a spot to target. I was reading a stat, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but the success that teams are having throwing to the middle of the field versus Carolina is crazy this year. And that's where Zach Ertz kind of runs all his routes. And look, man, if this guy was a wide receiver, everyone would be wanting to play him. Everyone would. I mean, look at this. Look at these targets. Like 10, 13, 10, 14, 11. Last week, he didn't get double-digit targets for the first time, but damn, he got 9. And then 7 carries, or 7 receptions, and a touchdown. This is a guy who, speaking of touchdowns, as you can see, he scored a touchdown the past 2 weeks. This guy is due for even more crazy touchdown regression, and you're seeing it come. I mean, he's getting crazy end zone targets, red zone targets. He's getting air yards. He's getting straight-up targets. I mean, this is a great, great spot for him in a great matchup, and nobody's going to own him. I think it's a week that is pretty easy to pay up for tight end because of all the solid value in the wide receiver and the running back range. So I think this is a week that, man, if you don't want to play Njoku, maybe you say, oh, I have enough pieces of this Browns offense. You know, I got Baker, or I got Chubb, or I got Johnson, or I got Landry, or I got Ratley. If you don't want to play Njoku, man, I love paying up for Zach Ertz here. I really think that's a sharp move tonight, or today on Sunday. Another play I like a lot is George Kittle versus the Rams. If you expect this game to be a back-and-forth game, which I kind of do, I think San Francisco's a better offense than we think. And Beathard, I mean, man's better than we think. He did his thing versus Green Bay, and I think he's going to do his thing again versus a surprisingly easy surprisingly less active defense than we anticipated. So I like George Kittle here. But for my money and for Addy's actions take, I'm going to go ahead and say Zach Ertz at 7,100 is our guy. With that being said, let's move on to defense. Like I talked about, kind of not in the business of projecting defensive ownership or wherever that's going to go. It's sort of a crapshoot. So I'm going to just talk about my favorite defense. And I think this week my favorite defense points per dollar wise is going to be the Eagles. This Carolina offensive line is suspect at best. They're injured as well. This Philadelphia defensive line is ferocious. And that's what we've talked about. You're looking for pressure on the quarterback when selecting a defense, because pressure on the quarterback leads to turnovers, and turnovers lead to big points and how you rack up points for a defense. So I think, we saw Carolina open at 20.5 team total, and that has now dropped to 19.75. I think the Eagles defense will be the chalk, but I don't really care. It doesn't make a difference to me, unless, like, the only time I ever really care about a chalk defense, if there's going to be like a 3.6K defense that's going to be like the fattest chalk, then I'm going to fade that defense because I don't care. But in this case, I don't think there's really like a strong way to go. So I just think plugging the Eagles defense, they give you good upside versus a turnover prone quarterback in Cam Newton, and a guy who can take a couple sacks in Cam Newton as well. So with that being said, I think that kind of wraps it up for Addy's action. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you enjoy our analysis or our content, please do like, comment, and subscribe. We're running a giveaway for a free NFL pass, and we're giving it away on Sunday. So if you're still watching this video, go ahead and comment with your favorite GPP play of the week. Give me your favorite GPP play. I want to hear from you guys. If you have questions, please do fire away on Twitter or on YouTube. My Twitter is @reallyaddy, or you can obviously leave comments, and I will, as I did last week, try and respond to every single one of them, or as many as I can get to. But yeah, with that being said, locksdfs.com for everything. Hit us up, buy a weekly pass, monthly pass, and get in for NHL or NBA, because we're about to start really rolling here with those sports. We're really about to start locking in on all of this, so y'all don't want to miss it, man. It's only going up from here, so definitely check us out and give us a shot. But appreciate y'all checking me out today. With that being said, let's cash and have a good week 7. Peace.